Good afternoon. I'm Meteorologist David Kramer with Alaska Weather. Thanks for joining us today. We are out deployed at the State Emergency Operations Center, providing on-site support to our state and federal partners in support of Typhoon Halong as it travels up the west coast, bringing strong winds and coastal flooding to areas along the west coast and strong winds out by Pribilof Islands. Now, the storm has continuing to progress up the coastline. It is now currently over the Kotzebue Sound area. High wind warnings remain in effect through Monday morning for Norton Sound and Kotzebue Sound areas, as well as through Tuesday morning for the northwest Alaska coast. One of the major concerns is coastal flooding. We have many areas that are still under coastal flooding concerns. Areas south of Hooper Bay up through the Kuskokwim Delta area. We'll see an increase in water levels again this evening as the next tide comes in. However, these will be noticeably lower than what happened this morning, up to 4 feet or more lower than the high water levels that we saw this morning. Areas from Hooper Bay through the Yukon Delta are expected to see peak water levels this evening through tonight. Eastern Norton Sound as well as northern Norton Sound are expected to see peak water levels tonight through Monday morning, and Kotzebue Sound and the northwest coast will see peak water levels Monday through Tuesday morning. This takes us to our map that shows all of our watches, warnings, advisories that we currently have out for this state. This was last updated at 10 a.m. This will change over time as the storm moves farther to the north and east. Please check our website, weather.gov/Alaska, to get the most updated warning information for your area. Starting in the south, we still have coastal flood warnings in effect for the Kuskokwim Delta area. This is tracking up the west coast through the northwest Arctic coastline. We have high wind warnings up there as well as the coastal flood warnings. High wind warnings will also be in effect for the Kotzebue Sound area as well as the Norton Sound area, and we have those high wind warnings extending into the western interior and wind advisories as we get closer to the central interior. Taking a look at our satellite imagery, we can see here as the low tracks up from near the Laike Delta area up through the Seward Peninsula and out over the Kotzebue Sound area. The track that it's on right now will take it near Utqiagvik as we move into tonight time frame and then off farther to the east. So looking at our winds for tonight as the low is near Utqiagvik, we still see a lot of stronger winds out over the Norton Sound area, out of the west, and also in the Kotzebue Sound area, again out of the west. We'll still see coastal flood concerns as these move through. But again, with this track, it is going to be lower than what we saw last Wednesday on October 8th for the Kotzebue Sound area, and significantly lower than what we saw for Murbach for the southern portions of the Seward Peninsula. As we move into Monday morning, the low will track farther off to the north and east, but we will still see westerly winds out over the Norton Sound area, northwest winds in Kotzebue Sound, and northerly winds over the northwest coastline that will still bring coastal flood threats, especially at higher tides for those areas. As we track into Monday afternoon, continuing to see some westerly winds for the Kotzebue Sound area as well as the northwest coast, so there will be elevated water levels again for those areas. As we move into Tuesday morning, we're really starting to shift our focus now to the next storm that's coming up near the central Aleutian Islands. As we move into Tuesday afternoon, you can see this storm approaching the southern portions of the Bering Sea, and we're watching this to see what kind of impacts it will have along the west coast. Right now, what we're looking at is that this storm should progress farther to the east, track near the Aleutian Islands, and then out into the northern portions of the Gulf of Alaska, bringing minimal impacts to the majority of the west coast. The one area of concern that we will have to keep an eye on as we move closer towards Tuesday afternoon and especially into Wednesday is the Kuskokwim Delta area, as the southerly direction could bring some increased water levels. Again, nothing like we saw this morning, but still possibility for some increased water levels in that area. Taking a look back at what we saw with Typhoon Halong as it moved up the west coast, these are some of the records that we saw being set. Kipnik got up to 6.6 feet above the normal highest tide line. The previous record was 4.7 feet, so this is almost 2 feet higher than the previous record that we had seen. Quigilinok, it was up to 6.3 feet above the normal highest tide line, and that beats both of the previous higher ones that we've seen in recent history for Quig at August 18th in 2024. Got up to 2.5 feet, and Murbach was only up to 1.7 feet. That is almost 4 feet higher than what we saw during either of those bigger events in recent memory. We also had some very strong winds, some of the observed winds that we saw from the Pribilof Islands and West Coast. Kusilvac got up to 107 miles per hour. Tooksuk Bay up to 100 miles per hour. St. George 98. Reindeer River up to 86. Janunuk 84 miles per hour. St. Paul 81. Kotlik 78. St. Mary 76. Chivak 74. And part of this is showing the huge difference in land areas that we had. Exceptionally strong winds getting up to hurricane level for those wind gusts for all of these areas and out by the Pribilof Islands, as well as much of the Bering Sea. Central Bering Sea, eastern and northern portions of the Bering Sea all saw these strong winds as well. With Alaska weather, I'm David Kramer. Thanks for watching.